So we've seen how the incarnation involves the supreme selectivity that narrows down the infinite to a single individual, Jesus, in a single nation. It involves this chosenness that, when looked at from the perspective of just cold nature, looks like this ultimate unfairness, chosenness as favoritism, and favoritism as the source of all types of oppression and unfairness. But we saw that chosenness in and of itself isn't bad. It actually, when looked at from the perspective of love, is not chosenness for privilege, but chosenness for the ones not chosen. Emphasis on the for, that the Son of Man, that Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life for the unchosen, for the ones that fall through the cracks, for the rejected ones. Jesus came to set free the prisoner. And so the essential message of the incarnation is chosenness, yes, but chosenness for the sake of others. With great power comes great responsibility. So now the question becomes, well, isn't this just another type of unfairness? Isn't this unfairness at the opposite extreme of taking one for the team? You all know what that means. Let's say, for example, that you and I and a bunch of us from our class go to a restaurant to celebrate the end of the class. And maybe there are 30 of us, and we all go to TGIF Fridays or Applebee's or wherever we can get the free apps. And there we are. We have this scrumptious meal. We eat a lot. We drink a lot. The bill comes. It's put on our table. And then, little known, we talk about Jerry, and we all whisper to each other and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could all eat for free on Jerry's tab? So I make an excuse. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. And then I sneak out. And little by little, everyone just kind of sneaks out and leaves Jerry with the bill. Jerry then has to pay this huge bill or wash dishes for the rest of the night. Isn't he going to be angry? Now imagine we say, but Jerry, you did a good thing. We've chosen you. We've chosen you to take one for the team. Even though you hurt, even though you suffered, your suffering produced so much good, so much pleasure for everybody else. That would still be unfair, wouldn't it? It would still be unfair to say that you are chosen and we chose you, that you might suffer for everyone else. But the problem is again, we're not looking at the fairness or unfairness of it. We're looking at, is the incarnation something that's intrinsically improbable? And if we look and see that the very vicariousness of the incarnation, it exhibits something that actually is in nature itself and throughout nature, then again, this is a clue to how things can be explained by something that is the original of an image. And we see images of vicariousness all throughout nature. So let me explain what vicarious means, because the claim that we're making is that not only is the incarnation inherently a substitution, a vicariousness of the chosen for the unchosen, on behalf of the unchosen, but that nature throughout, through and through, is vicarious. That's a big word, and it simply means this: living through others. You've all heard of like a father living vicariously through the successes of, say, his son, where, oh, he never got to play professional baseball, and so he forces his son to play, and his son is successful, goes to the big leagues, and therefore the father lives vicariously through the son's success. He doesn't have it himself. The son now becomes his substitute for success. So vicarious just means substitute. And nature does this all the time. Others live through your death. All life depends on death. You all watched The Lion King, And if you remember, there's the speech that Mufasa gives his son Simba as they're standing on the cliff overlooking the kingdom of the savannah that Mufasa is the ruler of. And he says to his son, Simba, it is the circle of life. You remember that? Probably not as good as he said it. But the idea is this. You and I, son, we eat the zebra. And then the zebra eats the plants. And the plants grow out of the soil that is formed through your carcass, Simba. The circle of life. But if you notice, the circle of life really is a circle of death, isn't it? Vicarious death. The living live off the dead. From the very bottom of life all the way up to the highest levels of society. Take, for example, plants. They live on soil. What is soil? Soil is just accumulated decay. And without that decay, there is no plant. And so plants live on soil that are the accumulated decay of dead bodies, living things that must die in order to fertilize the plant. The animals eat the plants, and the animals, by eating, have to kill, right? They either eat a plant or another animal, and without, therefore, killing other things, animals can't live. And thus, human beings eat animals and plants, and therefore are universal killers. Without killing, there is no life. Now, let's go up to the higher levels of society. Think about your car. What does it run on? Gasoline, fuel, oil. Without oil, our society, our technology, the medicine, everything we have that is used for the benefit of others is based on a certain energy source, coal and oil. But what is coal and oil but the product of mass extinction, mass death? And therefore, the whole of our modern society is based on the death of millions and billions of species, that without which we wouldn't have enough to fuel our economy, our prosperity, and our lives. Think of states. They demand something. You live in a society that is safe and prosperous because it has two things: death and taxes. My dad used to say that when he'd say, son, there's only two things that are certain in life: death and taxes. And why is that the case? Well, think of it this way. Yes, we have a volunteer army, but even if we didn't, we would need one, wouldn't we? We would need people to defend both our freedom and our safety, both police and military. What must these people be willing to do in order to keep society free? They must be willing to take one for the team. They must be willing to lay down their lives for the sake of others. And therefore, society, its stability and safety depends on having a draft. During World War II, we needed more people than had actually volunteered for the military. Right now, all males at least have to register for what is called selective service. Well, what is selective service? It's the idea that once you become 18 of age, you must be willing, and whether you're willing or not, it doesn't matter, you will be forced to serve in the military if society demands it. It is your duty, whether you're willing or not. And therefore, society lives on the possibility of your death. Without people giving their lives, society can't be stable. Taxes. Well, what is taxes? No free lunch. All the goods and benefits you have come from having to watch some of us who are not poor giving money from what we've earned. And we, in our country, think it's fair that the wealthier you are, the more taxes you should have to pay, that it should be a graded scale, that if you're poor, you pay fewer taxes than if you're rich. And so what do we say? We say, to whom much is given, much more is expected. Do we ask people whether they're willing to? No one's willing to pay taxes. But guess what? Without taxes, society cannot run. And therefore, we live vicariously, don't we? From the bottom up. your livelihood, your life is based on others' suffering and death. The whole of nature, from the amoeba all the way to Al Sharpton, live only through others' death and suffering. Nature is vicarious. And what we see in the Incarnation is the supreme expression and manifestation of the vicarious nature of reality, in that God himself shrinks himself to a human, to a slave, and then what? And then gives himself to death on behalf of the many. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life for many. What you see in nature is expressed supremely in the pattern of the descent and death of God.